So let's take a look at how different drugs affect sexuality. So the first one is alcohol. Alcohol is actually a central nervous system depressant. So the way that it may affect your sexuality, a lot of you may say that you feel more sexual when you're using alcohol, but the alcohol is taking away your inhibitions, so you may feel more free sexually. However, the more you drink, the less your sexual organs are going to respond super effectively, especially for the men. So what alcohol does is it removes the inhibitions, but it kind of decreases your ability to perform. So if you have hang-ups about sexuality, then it may help you feel a little less inhibited. And for the female orgasm, maybe if you feel uptight about asking for what you want and you don't drink very much, then it might help you. However, the more that you drink, it kind of decreases your nervous system activity, so you may have a more difficult time achieving orgasm, and men may have a more difficult time of getting an erection. Now, cocaine, this is definitely works on dopamine. It facilitates it inhibits the reuptake of dopamine. So some people can say that they have said that their best sexual experience ever was on cocaine, because you have the dopamine from the sex act and then you have the extra dopamine from the use of the drug. But the problem is with drugs, as I'm sure many of you know, is like once you open the door, and you have this massive influx of dopamine, it's very hard to recreate this without the drug. So you want to think of a hole. And so your normal is that you just have to fill this hole. But now that you released so much dopamine all at once, there was an overflow to fill that hole, so another hole was created. So now you have two holes to fill. And you don't have enough natural dopamine to fill both holes. So then what happens is you kind of lose interest in the sex to release your dopamine, and it may lead to sexual dysfunction because the chemicals have been thrown off so much. You understand that whole feedback loop. It's like when you release an excess of chemical, then what happens is your body responds by decreasing its release. So then if you don't have the chemical there, you have a twofold thing. You have, oh my gosh, you don't have that extra chemical, and changes have been made to the receptor site, so you can't fill it naturally, and so then you go into withdrawal. So it says regular users may become dependent on cocaine for sexual arousal or lose all interest in sex. Let's see. How could I explain that one? I could explain that one kind of, so I'm trying to explain to you how the chemicals work. Look, if you know that you can get an easy rush, and you don't need a person there to give you that rush, and you can just get it by taking a chemical, you could see that how you would become lazy. That sex would give you less of a rush with more work, with more complications. So you start to become like, I don't even need the sex anymore. Just give me the drug. I'm going to get a higher high from the drug than being with a person. Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay, marijuana. So I know that a lot of you use marijuana. It is legal now. And there seems to be very mixed results regarding marijuana, but I feel like there's such mixed results on marijuana anyway. Like, some people say that it makes them very hungry. Other people say that it takes away their appetite. Some people say that, it focuses my attention. Other people say it takes away my attention. And then you guys come back at me and you usually say, oh, well, that's the kind of strain of marijuana. However, the research that I've seen about marijuana is that the crops are so mixed that when they're labeling something as indica or sativa, that's just an arbitrary label, because they really can't tell the difference between the crops because they're so intermixed. So I feel like marijuana is this drug that just really has different effects on different people. Some people will say it really relaxes me, and other people will say no, it doesn't do anything for me. Some people can say, oh, it hypes me up. Just very bizarre how it affects. And so I think it seems like appropriate that they find mixed results with regard to sexuality. So here it is. Marijuana is controversial. Laboratory results do not find any increase in sexual arousal or performance. It has actually been found to decrease performance, but some users report that they have more empathy and sensuality. I think that this one may come down to the individual differences, the way it affects each one of us differently. How some of us really like this drug and others say, it doesn't really do much for me. I think it probably plays a similar role for sexuality. And also we have to bring in the placebo effect. If it's just like the food aphrodisiacs. If you guys believe that a certain food stimulates your sex drive, then it probably will. So if you believe that marijuana is going to stimulate your sex drive, then it probably will. We find the placebo effect, your belief in something, is extremely powerful. They've even found it to be powerful in cases of surgery. That's how strong it is. Also, antidepressants. They found that many people can get better just by believing that they're taking an antidepressant drug. Okay, hallucinogens. Okay, so LSD. LSD and the hallucinogens like magic mushrooms, LSD. I don't really know much about PCP, but it's a hallucinogen. It works a little bit differently than the shrooms and the mescaline, the DMT, the LSD. LSD is going to last a long time, and it's like a, I would say it's going to last you at least 12 hours if you take a good dose on it. It's a drug where you're just going to kind of want to be by yourself. That's not one where I think you're going to feel very sexual. Same thing with shrooms, is you're kind of in this world where you're like seeing things a little bit differently and you're experiencing things differently. So I don't think there's much research on how these hallucinogens affect your sexuality, but I will say that that if you take these, I think it's much more of a solo journey. The sex, you might not even want somebody really to touch you that closely. But if we look at ecstasy, let me see if I have that. Yeah, I do have that next. Okay, so if you look at ecstasy, ecstasy is a mixture of, it's a cross between an amphetamine and kind of hallucinogen, a mild hallucinogen. So ecstasy was actually used by marital therapists in the 1970s to promote empathy. So ecstasy is this drug where you seem more open to being with other people. It's more of a rave drug. Report heightened feelings of openness, feelings of sensuality. So I've had students tell me that their best sex ever was on ecstasy. But I've also heard students say that the coming down off of ecstasy is not worth it. And I would recommend that if you have any tendency towards depression, I would say stay away from this drug. I understand that this drug would be like very tempting to try out. I can see it, definitely. But many people have told me that coming down off of this is really bad, and some people have said that the ecstasy kind of ruined their sexuality because they had sex on ecstasy, and like once you reach this certain level and then you can never go back again, it's like, what's the point? So interesting, huh? Okay, ecstasy is pills. Since it works on serotonin, it does this bad effects of it. When you hear people like dying from it, it affects the heart. It throws your body temperature off. You'll see people like rubbing each other down because their body temperature, they can't control it. Sometimes it makes your teeth chatter. Okay, well, let's go on to the date rape drugs. So the number one date rape drug of all is actually alcohol. So I believe, I think the statistics are 80% or it could even be 90% of all rapes, date rapes, happen under the influence of alcohol. However, when we think of date rape drugs, a lot of times we're thinking of roofies or GHB. So first of all, I want to say that GHB is very easy to make, and so somebody who wants to create GHB, they can buy the supplies at a hardware store and they can create it at home. I remember there was this movie called Magic Mike. I don't know if you guys saw it, but I remember they drank the G because it had less calories than the alcohol, and they were trying to stay extremely lean. So the way that GHB works is it kind of it works like alcohol, so it's magnifying the effects of alcohol if you put it in. So you know how you just take one drink and let's say that equals 3, and then you take another drink, that would 3 plus 3 equals 6. But when you put the GHB in with a drink, they like have an interaction where 3 multiplies by 3. So instead of 3 plus 3 equals 6, it'd be 3 times 3 equals 9. So it makes you really, really, really drunk. Those of you who have been really, really drunk to the point where you kind of passed out, blacked out, that's what it would do. You take one drink and they put something in there and it just really magnifies the effect. And so the reason why it's a date rape drug is because 1, people can make it very easily. 2, it goes through your system within 12 hours. So by the time you wake up, it should already be through your system. And the ones that are repeated use of this drug for date rape is what they will do a lot of times is what they call booting. And what booting is they take some cocaine and they put it inside the vaginal cavity, and I guess if they're raping men, then it would be the anal cavity, which are very spongy kind of tissues. They're very absorbent, that's the word that I'm looking for. And so you know how like when somebody passes out, they would be no fun to have sex with. So what they do with the booting is it works twofold, is they put it inside of there and it wakes the person up enough so that they're kind of fun, kind of, you know, something to work with there. And also, if they go and get tested, they're going to test positive for cocaine, which can put a hole in their story. So roofies is something that you would get. I believe that you can purchase that across the border. I don't know too much about it, but I think they're relatively easy to get. They cost about $5 on a college campus. They're pills, and then you crush them up and you put them in their drinks. Now the roofies, they last a little bit longer than the GHB. They're going to last about 24 hours. And again, with these two drugs, roofies, the GHB, so you can see the different pictures. This is Ecstasy up here, this is the roofies, and this is the GHB. What the roofies and the GHB do is they put you in a state of like pretty maximum intoxication.